As many of you know, one of my sources that I use is from Stratfor, which is an intelligence source. And in light of what has happened over the last couple of days with Las Vegas, where 59 people were killed and counting, and over 500 were injured, and I'm sure that total is going to go up. And from time to time, if you get my web alerts, in fact, I would very much encourage you to become a part of my web alerts. Just go to my website and look on the top right hand corner where it says subscribe to alerts. You'll be notified when I send out any type of web alert or whatever the case may be. And from time to time I do send out security bulletins that I receive from top security professionals, and one of them being Scott Stewart, Vice President of Tactical Analysis for Stratfor. And some of the topics that we have discussed have been kidnapping, in fact what you should do in order to prevent being kidnapped, and some of the safeguards that you should employ to prevent that from happening to you. Also, hotel security if you are traveling abroad. These are some of the things that you should do. Security systems and things of that nature have been discussed by Stratfor and others. And I like to get security information from these types of experts because they have been trained by the best in the world. And another thing is this is not a cheap subscription that I buy from Stratfor, so I know that with the ratings that they receive and the information I've received in the past, and for, like I said, I've said many times, much of the time they are right on the nose, and they are very seldom wrong in my opinion. But the latest security bulletin that they put out was entitled, "The Las Vegas Attack Will Inspire Copycats." And to give you an idea of what he's talking about, because of the success that came from this attack, Scott Smith believes that there will be copycat attempts probably in the near future. So basically this is not an if but when situation that this will take place. Now, how in the world can this be prevented by event organizers to keep this from happening in one of their events? Well, security planners, this is a reading from Stratfor, says security planners for large events, especially official high-profile ones, designated national security events, because they are a high risk of being targeted by terrorists or criminals, may have the resources to conduct extensive pre-event preparations, including sweeping for potential threats and positioning counter-sniper teams. However, even the federal agencies in charge of securing such events will have to rethink some of their standard assumptions to now account for snipers inside buildings with windows not designed to open. Furthermore, the concert attack presented a wrinkle that even one standard protective method probably would have missed. A review of the Mandalay Bay's guest registry in a search for potential threats likely would not have flagged the shooter, as there was little in the history to indicate he might take such an action. As many of you have already heard from the various analysts and experts, this guy was completely off the radar because he simply did not meet the profile that we are used to and expect. He was rich, he was a high-rolling gambler, he was a frequent visitor to casinos, he owned property in various states. Not the kind of person that you expect to break out a window and start firing basically a manipulated semi-automatic weapon. And on top of that, stockpile many, many more weapons along with potential bombs and weapons. But let me go on with this reading. It says, but outside major events, most security managers simply do not have the resources to devote to those kinds of arrangements. So basically, you're in a lot of trouble if you're at a venue that simply does not have the funds and finances to provide the security that you're going to need in such an event. So that's where Stratfor comes in. I'm going to give you some tips that they have provided in order for you to stay alive in the event that somebody does shoot. And some of the tips that you're going to hear are really simple, common sense. But let me go ahead and read on with this article. It says, this reality that we simply don't have any way to many times stop a attack as it is happening puts the emphasis on other things. And Stratfor believes that we should put more emphasis on the need for the authorities to focus on the terrorist attack cycle, giving them the opportunity to detect when a would-be attacker is conducting surveillance on a target, acquiring weapons, or getting ready to attack or to act at all points at which a plot is vulnerable to disruption before an attack proceeds. Further, the Las Vegas shooter, a white 64-year-old millionaire, does not fit the profile most people picture when thinking about a terrorist or mass murderer. Therefore, this case presents a prime example of why counterterrorism efforts should focus on the how rather than the who. And that's why it's important for those who are staying in places like Vegas or other hotbeds for entertainment, or really anywhere that there's the possibility that an attack could take place, that individuals such as you and I need to be aware of our surroundings and of those who are coming and going. And if you see something that you feel is out of the ordinary, and many times, as has been stated in previous reports that I've sent out, criminals are simply not that smart, and many times they will give away the fact that they are doing something wrong. Let me give an example of that. If somebody is surveilling your neighborhood to try to see when the best time is that they can rob your house, most of the time, if you are being aware of your surroundings, you will notice this person doing so. And when you notice them, they'll notice that you're noticing them. And many times will give away the fact that they're in the wrong place at the wrong time. In fact, one of the things that I find funny is that when FBI, CIA agents are trained to do surveillance on a particular person or place or whatever the case may be, they have to be taught how to not be picked up as surveilling something. And frankly put, unless you're trained, you're gonna give yourself away almost every single time. So there's definitely an art to being able to do surveillance on a person, place, or event without being caught or picked up by an expert. That simply must be learned. So the first tip is that when you are out and about, whether you're traveling or whatever the case may be, when you see something that simply doesn't look right, or you see someone who seems to be paying more attention or looks out of place in a certain area or in a certain place, you need to be aware that this person could potentially be up to no good. And as Stratford's security bulletins have said more than one time, local tips and awareness by just local people like you and I many times have been the best security measures that have brought many to justice. So be aware of your surroundings and know exactly what you should do in an event that you see something that simply doesn't look right. And that leads to the last but most important part of the article. It's entitled, "What Can Ordinary People Do?" And this is what Scott Stewart has to say. It says, 2 weeks ago I discussed how people can help protect themselves when they are in a crowd that is targeted for an attack. If you are in a vulnerable location, to increase your odds of escaping if an attack erupts, it is critical to remain aware of your surroundings. Stay alert for trouble and quickly recognize if an assault is unfolding. But most important, you should already have mentally prepared yourself to take immediate action to get out of the kill zone once you are aware of the danger. Reviewing some of the videos of the Las Vegas attack, it was easy to see the difference between people who took immediate action after they recognized the threat and those who simply froze. Instead of running for cover, some people just stood there. Some even shooting video with their cell phones. And one person was actually jumping up and down and waving his arms as if to taunt the shooter. Another widely circulated video, a man made an obscene gesture at the attacker. Don't be these people. Get out of the kill zone immediately and find cover. Now here's a simple tool that you may need, that you should take probably to every large event that you know there could possibly be something of this nature happening. And here's some things that you may encounter. It says, besides shock, first responders and others who came to the aid of the wounded had to deal with extensive bleeding. In fact, bleeding is the primary cause of death when people are hurt by gunshots or shrapnel in bombings. Beyond knowing how to administer basic first aid, it is important to have materials with which to effectively do so. I carry a tourniquet. This is, like I said, Scott Stewart talking. Hemostatic bandage and chest seal in my small bag in my briefcase every day. Now, of course, you can make up any type of small bag you place in your car, take it with you when you do go to events that possibly where a large crowd is going to be gathered, and in case something like that does happen, you have yours on you in this event. He also says that he carries these kits equipped with these items in each of his vehicles. Well, it is certainly possible to create an improvised tourniquet using shoelaces or a belt. Why rely on makeshift methods when genuine emergency supplies are so inexpensive and light to carry? Being prepared will not only allow you to treat yourself or a member of your family if needed, but it will also perhaps save a life in the aftermath of an attack. And he closes by saying, we do live in a dangerous world, but honestly, at no time in history has civilization been free of those who would hurt or kill others. It's a fact of life today that just as automobile accidents and disease pose a threat to life, terrorists and mass murderers will target innocent and unsuspecting people. Recognizing that these attacks are possible, however, does not mean that you must live in fear. In fact, paranoia is counterproductive to a healthy and sustainable level of personal security. However, by understanding the threats and developing the proper mindset, people can remain resilient in the face of them. So these are just some of the tips that he has provided in this article that I thought were very important, that simply put, you need to be aware of your surroundings, be prepared, and think ahead. No, don't become paranoid, but at least think about what the possibilities could be and where you need to go in case an attack of this magnitude were to take place. And of course, if you don't know the Lord, today is the day of salvation. Of course, this is a Christian Bible prophecy ministry. And on top of giving you good, sound security advice, we discuss a biblical basis as to why we believe we're living in the last days. And simply put, this is actually one of the staples of the last days, that we'd be living in dangerous times. But you know, the biggest danger is this right here, is that you could die today, and if you do, where would you spend eternity? You know, 150,000 people will die today. The Bible says that the vast majority will end up in a burning hell. Don't let that happen to you. Come to the Lord today, ask Him to save you, and from this day forward, live for Him. And certainly, as I said earlier, this is a Bible prophecy website and channel. And for those of you who are Christians, I'd like to recommend my Tribulation Period Survival Guide. Basically what it is, it gives you good, sound biblical tips on how you can survive the tribulation period. But most of all, it tells those who read it that they need to come to the Lord today. And if you have lost friends and loved ones who you've been witnessing to for years, this very well may be the witnessing tool that will finally get the message of God's salvation across to them. And yes, did I mention that I have a paperback English version as well? I would recommend that you buy one of these English versions and hand it to your lost loved one and ask them to read it. And who knows, they may get saved before the rapture takes place and before the tribulation period begins. But that is the first recommendation. That is the first thing that they're going to learn when they read this book, is they need to come to the Lord as Savior as quickly as possible. So if this is your case and you do have friends and loved ones that you would love for them to hear the gospel, I would recommend that you get several copies of this and pass them out. Well, this is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.